So, how exactly do you build the greatest football team of all time? And I mean, not just once, not even twice, but three separate times. Well, that is kind of the ultimate question in modern sports. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to break down the mind of a manager who didn't just win a few trophies, he completely re engineered how the game of football is actually played.
We're talking, of course, about Pep Guardiola. As a manager, this guy has secured a staggering 27 trophies, absolutely dominating La Liga, the Bundesliga, and the Premier League. But his legacy isn't just in the silverware, it's really in his methodology. It's this incredible system built on relentless precision, geometric passing, and an almost obsessive desire to control literally every single blade of grass on the pitch.
Okay, let's dive into this because today we're going to trace the entire tactical evolution of Pep Guardiola. We're going to look at the exact structures, the specific player roles, and the underlying philosophies that allowed him to conquer Europe time and time again. And here is our quick roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with the philosophy of positional play, then move on to Barcelona and the false nine, hit Bayern and their inverted fullbacks, cross over to City in the Premier League, and finish up with his massive 3-2-2-3 tactical revolution. Let's get started. First up, Section 1, the philosophy of positional play. Because before we can understand the variations of his teams, we really have to understand the constant. Positional play, or juego de posición, boils down to one word: superiority. Guardiola basically wants his team to have an advantage in every single phase of the game. That could be numerical, having three attackers against two defenders. It could be positional, occupying the exact right spaces between the opponent's lines. Or even qualitative, isolating your absolute best dribbler one-on-one with their weakest defender. And the main way he achieves all of this is by obsessively controlling the center of the pitch. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Look at how many players are just crowded into those central channels. Guardiola's philosophy here is super simple. He wants his most talented players inside, filling up the middle of the field so they can pass the ball rapidly and endlessly. He pushes his wingers extremely wide to stretch out the defense, which creates these huge, gaping holes in the middle for his central players to exploit. But make no mistake, playing this highly aesthetic, beautiful football, it actually requires absolute brutality behind the scenes. Pep literally demands that his players train like beasts to play like beasts. Effort is prized way above raw talent here. His teams have to attack in all moments, whether they have the ball or they're aggressively trying to win it back. They are strictly forbidden from losing possession cheaply, and the whole thing is held together by rigid zone defense and unrelenting tactical discipline. So, armed with this rigid philosophy, Guardiola embarked on a managerial journey that would basically change the sport forever, starting in the Spanish lower divisions with Barcelona B back in 2007, then jumping up to the Barcelona first team, moving over to Germany, and eventually landing in England's. Let's look at that very first great leap. Section 2, Barcelona and the False Nine. In 2008, Guardiola takes over the Barcelona first team. And by 2009, he had built what a lot of people consider to be the greatest European club team of this century. At the heart of it was a complete tactical masterstroke, the false nine. You know the traditional hulking striker who wrestles with center backs all game? Yeah, scratch that. Guardiola deployed a forward who purposefully vacated that high central space. By dropping deep into the midfield, this false nine creates an absolute nightmare for defenders. I mean, think about it. Do they step up and follow him, leaving a massive hole behind them for winners to run into? Or do they stay back and just let the false nine turn and run freely right at them? Notice how that dropping movement completely overloads the midfield. And the player who perfected this role under Pep was, obviously, Lionel Messi. By dropping into these specific pockets of space, Messi could receive the ball on the half turn and drive directly at terrified center backs. This one single tactical shift was so devastating, it helped spark 4 consecutive Ballon d'Or wins for Messi, firmly establishing him in the GOAT debate. The absolute peak of this Barca side came in the 2011 Champions League final against Manchester United. They won 3-1, but honestly, the scoreline doesn't even do it justice. They dominated the ball so completely that United were essentially just chasing shadows for 90 minutes. Even the legendary Sir Alex Ferguson had to concede, flat out admitting that nobody had ever given his team a hiding quite like that. All right, moving to part 3, Bayern Munich and the inverted fullbacks. After conquering Spain and Europe, Guardiola takes a sabbatical. Then he takes on perhaps his highest pressure job yet, taking over a Bayern Munich team that had literally just won the treble. I mean, how do you improve a team that has already won everything? Well, you evolve the geometry of the pitch. Enter the inverted fullback. While Pep's mentor Johan Cruyff experimented with this years prior, Guardiola modernized it. Traditionally, a fullback's job is just to run up and down the sideline, right? But an inverted fullback is instructed to move laterally, actually stepping inside into central midfield when the team has the ball.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the domino effect this single movement creates. By moving a defender into midfield, Bayern suddenly had an extra man right in the center of the pitch. This allowed guys like Philipp Lahm and David Alaba to just dominate possession, effortlessly work the ball out from the back under insane pressure, and vitally protect the center of the field against counterattacks. Plus, it left the wide areas totally empty, so lethal wingers like Robben and Ribéry could isolate their defenders one-on-one.
Which takes us to Section 4, City and the Premier League. In 2016, Pep brings his playbook to England, and man, the critics immediately sharpened their knives. They all said his possession-based style was way too fragile for the relentless, physical Premier League. They said he wouldn't survive the rainy Tuesday nights. Well, 2.28. The critics were completely wrong. That is Pep's points per game average at Manchester City. It is the highest of any manager to take charge of 20 or more games in the entire history of the Premier League. His dominance in England has been nothing short of absolute. In 10 whole seasons, he has never finished below third. 6 league titles, the only squad in English history to hit 100 points in a single season. But here's the kicker. He didn't do it just by copy-pasting his Barcelona tactics. He adapted. He realized the Premier League was all about second balls and physicality, so he integrated this aggressive, high-intensity counterpress to literally suffocate English teams. And the crazy part is, he just keeps adapting. For years, City played this highly fluid shape without a traditional striker, rotating beautifully to confuse defenders. But the second they signed Erling Haaland, who is a much more static but absolutely lethal target man, Guardiola completely changed the team's dynamic. He shifted to a much more rigid 3-2-4-1 structure specifically designed to feed Haaland in the box, while still maintaining that total control behind him. Which brings us to the climax of this explainer, Part 5, the 3-2-2-3 tactical revolution. This is what analysts are calling Guardiola's next great evolution. This structure is designed to completely obliterate modern high-pressing defenses, and it is a tactical marvel. During build-up, the goalkeeper actually steps up to become part of the defensive back three. That gives the team an immediate numbers advantage right out of the gate. But the real magic is in what's called the engine room, a box midfield made of 2 deep pivots and 2 advanced playmakers. This diamond shape basically guarantees a 4v2 or 4v3 overload in the center at all times. And if they do lose the ball, City immediately triggers a vicious 3 to 5 second counterpress, suffocating the opponent before they can even take a breath. And they literally use this shape as a weapon of deception. Read this quote. City deliberately utilizes deep circulation to purposely bait the press. They will patiently pass the ball around their own penalty box, practically begging the other team to sprint forward and attack them. It's a masterclass in controlled provocation. They stretch the opponent out, and the second the trap is set, City switches to lethal vertical passing, exploiting all those massive gaps the opponent just left behind. So, the crucial point is, how do they ensure this super aggressive attacking doesn't leave them totally exposed at the back? It's through something called rest defense, or defensa preventiva. While 7 players are swarming the final third trying to score, a dedicated block of 3 defenders stay back. But they aren't just standing around watching the game. They're actively engaging in preventative marking, standing right shoulder to shoulder with the opponent's strikers, physically blocking the passing lanes so that any counterattack is neutralized before the ball is even played. Which really leaves us with this final thought. Pep Guardiola has conquered Spain, Germany, and England. He stacked up 27 trophies. He popularized the false 9, revived the inverted fullback, and engineered a 3-2-2-3 structure that practically breaks the modern press. He has literally changed the geometry of the sport. So the only question left to ask is, what on earth could the greatest tactical mind in football possibly invent next? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep your eyes on the pitch to find out.